When it comes to animating cameras, it's all just a question of maintaining perspective. As long as you have a good idea as to what you'd like your animation to look like and a relatively clear view of your scene, animating cameras can be a relatively painless process. In this video, we're going to use automatic keyframing to speed up the process. But before we can do that, we actually need to add a camera into our scene. So let's start by making sure our timeline is active and then going up to Layer and then choose New Camera. Now for our animations, we're actually going to animate two different kinds of cameras. The first camera that I'd like you to animate is called a one-node camera. So make sure the type of camera is set to one-node camera, and then under your presets, you want to choose the 50mm preset. Now, if by chance you've gone in and adjusted any of these preset settings, you can reset factory defaults just by holding down Option on a Mac or Alt on Windows and clicking on a trash can. That will reset the default preset. Just make sure once it's reset that your type is set to one-node camera. Now we don't need depth of field, so we're set to just go ahead and click OK. You should see the camera in the top of your layer hierarchy. If you had a different layer selected, the camera would appear just above the layer that you had selected. Now with our camera in the scene, what I'm going to do is more clearly view my scene, and to do that we need to switch the views from one view to two views. With two views, I want to create a move going from one frame to the frame above it. Now in order to do that, I want to actually change my left view here from the top to a side view. So right now I know my active camera view is active because I see these golden triangles on the right side. So let's click on the left side to make the top active, and then click on the pull down in the center of your composition panel to choose left as the option. Once left populates the scene, you'll see things more clearly. But notice I can't see the camera. I can only see the camera if I click on layer 1, and even then it's so far out I can't really see exactly where the camera lives. So let's start by changing the magnification of the left panel. You can scroll on your mouse wheel to zoom in and out, or you can just press the comma or period keys. I'm going to zoom out till I can see absolutely everything in the scene, and I'll just press the spacebar to move things to the left. Now I know it looks really small, so I'm just going to zoom back in just one little area and reframe. Now just in case I don't have layer 1 selected, I like to actually know where my camera is at any given time. So what I'm going to do is go to the upper right corner of the composition panel. Click on that fly out button and go to the view options. Under the view options for camera wireframes, you want to change this option from when selected to on. Once we click OK, now you'll notice I can see exactly what the camera is looking at, even though I don't have the camera selected. Now just for ease of animation, let's go ahead and select that camera. Now before we create this move, what we need to do is enable auto keyframing. To do that, we need to go to the upper right corner of the timeline panel and click on the fly out button where you want to go down, and make sure then you should see the auto keyframe button in the top center of your timeline panel. Now with the auto keyframe enabled, you have to be very careful to what you click on or move around within your project, because it automatically going to keyframe anything. So the first thing I want to do is move my current time indicator to about 1 second, and then I'm just going to hover over the y-axis on the camera. It's a little hard to see, but it's a little green arrow. Let's just click once and move up and down just a little bit, just to toggle that movement. Now press U on our keyboard, the Uber key. That'll open up any keyframes that we've applied. So you can see we've already recorded our first keyframe. Now let's move down to 2 seconds in the timeline, because I want this to be a 1 second move. Now that our current time indicator is at 2 seconds, we can click on the y-axis and just drag up, and notice as you drag up in the scene, it may take a second for your windows to refresh. If it's taking a long amount of time, you might consider changing the resolution from auto to half, and this will definitely speed things up a bit. So let's go ahead and make sure that we have that second time framed up here. Okay, now in order to preview our animation, I could just load up a RAM preview, but just so I don't accidentally add more keyframes, I'm going to go to the flyout menu in the upper right corner of the timeline again, and just disable auto keyframing. Now let's move back to 1 second here, and I'm going to make sure in my preview panel that I have from current time selected. And I know this is a relatively heavy render, so I'm actually going to go ahead and just tell it to skip every 2 frames, and this will just speed up my preview. Now the only other thing I want to do is make sure that my active camera is selected. and then I can go ahead and just enable my preview here. So it's going to go ahead and start from our current time, and there you can see we have our move. Now let's select the camera because this move frankly is a little boring. So what I'm going to do is tweak the motion path of that camera. To do that, let's make sure our left panel is active, and then zoom in by pressing the period key, and then press the spacebar to move over, and re-click on the camera so we can see our motion path. In order to change how the camera moves through the scene, let's go ahead and just click on one of the keyframes. So let's have the camera move in towards the footage and then come back out. To do that, I want to right click or control click on the keyframe. Go to my keyframe assistant and just enable Easy Ease. In order to do that, what I need to do is go to my pen tool, click and hold on to the pen tool and choose Convert Vortex Tool. Now when I go ahead and click and drag on my vortex, I can drag out a control handle here and control how my camera is moving through the scene. Now I don't need to load up a full round preview. I can just scrub through the scene and notice it's going to go ahead and give me the update here in my active view. So as I'm looking at it, that looks relatively okay, but I do want to load up a RAM preview. So let's go ahead and just load that up here and press the spacebar. There we go. Okay, so I really don't like that motion. Let's go ahead and change it to go to the opposite direction. We'll have it move away from the footage. Now let's go ahead and tweak that second keyframe as well. One of the things that I recommend doing when you're tweaking motions of keyframes is to just make sure that your current time indicator has the camera in a different position. That way, when I go ahead and click on that second keyframe, there's no confusion as to exactly what it is I'm clicking on. Now also, to better tweak this motion, what I'm going to do is kind of even out the handles so the move is relatively similar from the start to the end. So I'm just trying to make them roughly the same length and same angle roughly. And then we can just also just right click on the layers or select the keyframe and go up under Animation, Keyframe Assistant, add an Easy Ease in to smooth out the end. And we can do the same thing here with the left keyframe. Animation, Keyframe Assistant this time, we want to ease out. So we have a nice smooth move on our camera. So let's go ahead and preview this. Notice even when I preview this, it's giving me the preview in my active camera, which is exactly what I want. So as you can see, we've successfully created an animation by using automatic keyframing. And then, just using my pen tool, I could adjust the motion path of the camera as it moves from one keyframe to the next. And of course, we adjusted the speed by using our Easy Ease and Easy Ease Out. Now that's the one node camera. The advantage of the one node camera is the fact that it makes it very easy to keep this camera perfectly perpendicular to the footage that I'm creating in my moves around. So let's see about animating a second camera. Now to do that, I want to go up under the layer menu and choose New Camera. This time make sure the type is set to 2-node camera, and we can leave all the other settings the same and then click OK. Now when you have more than one camera in an After Effects composition, the topmost camera is the one that's going to render. Now I just don't want to confuse things. What I'm going to do is turn off the visibility of camera 1, and I'll go ahead and hide camera 1. So I'll enable shy for that layer. If you don't see your switches, make sure to toggle your toggles and switches until you can see the little shy button, and then we'll just hide camera 1. Okay, so now we're just set on camera 2. For this animation, all I want to do is just have a rotation around this main pass video frame. So in order to do that, I want to change my left view here to the top view. So make sure your left panel is active and change the view from left to top. Now you may need to reframe this. I'm going to zoom out here and then just press the spacebar to zoom back in. There we go. Let's select camera 2 and move to 1 second in the timeline. And just like we did before, I'm going to go ahead and hover over one of the axes of the camera. But instead of hovering over the y-axis, I'm going to hover over the x-axis, this red line. Now notice my icon isn't changing to let me know that I've hovered over that axis handle, and that's because I still have my Convert Vortex tool selected. So let's grab our selection tool, and now when I hover over the x-axis, I can see that's exactly where I am. Now in order to create my first keyframe, of course, I need to go back over to the upper right corner of the timeline, and then enable auto keyframe. Now you can just go ahead and just sort of scrub a little bit just to move my camera. And again, if we press the U key, you can see I've added 2 keyframes, one for position and one for the point of interest. See, when I hovered over the x-axis and started to move, it not only moved the camera, but it also moved the point of interest. Now I'm going to deselect both of these parameters and just click on the stopwatch for point of interest because I really don't want an animation for that. Now let's move to about 2 seconds in timeline. And I want the camera to go ahead and rotate to the right. Now when I click on the x-axis and drag to the right, it's going to want to move my point of interest again. So what I'll do is hold down the command key after I start dragging, and notice now my center point, or my point of interest, is back to where it started, and there is no keyframe that's been created, or there has been no keyframe created. So now I have a very smooth movement from one section to the other. Now of course I could grab my Convert Vertex tool and click on my first keyframe here and change the motion if I wanted to. So here we go. So now I've got a rotation set for this. Now of course I want to tweak my first keyframe. Let's go ahead and just position our current time indicator directly over that first keyframe. So let's hover over the x-axis, making sure that we have our selection tool active, and then click and drag to the left. Just make sure that you press Command or Control on Windows to make sure that the point of interest stays in place, and then you can go ahead and move your camera around. Now if we preview our animation, I'm sure you can see that it's in desperate need of some ease on those keyframes. But overall we've created a different type of animation using a 2-node camera. So when it comes to animating cameras, just make sure you pay attention to exactly what kind of camera is required for the type of move that you're trying to create. If you want to keep things perpendicular to the camera, go ahead and use a 1-node camera. But usually any time that I want to sort of fly around and orbit around things, I like animating with a 2-node camera. And then of course, if you've enabled automatic keyframing, you want to make sure to go back to the upper right corner of the timeline panel and just disable auto keyframe. That way you won't accidentally create any additional keyframes when you continue moving throughout your animation.